That's not my association. I associate with good people. And I'm not saying that them people are all vile and wicked. I'm saying they're lost, undone without God. Now, that does not mean I do not go to them. I preach to them. I propagate the gospel to them. I try to witness to them. I do it because God said, go ye into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. Go ye therefore, He says. Go ye to teach all nations. He said, ye should be witnesses unto me. It's a command. And we do it because we love God. And we do it, we have a love for this lost and dying world. And it goes to say we do that we submit to authority because of our love to God and our love for them to reach them. Because we don't always love them as we ought. But we love toward them because we need to, that we might reach them. The woman, that she might win her husband. The Bible tells her to submit to him, that she might win him without a conversation or by her meek and quiet spirit. This is all Bible. This is what God's trying to teach us. Our obedience is for the purpose of fulfilling our love. Our actions are obedience. Our attitude is love. And so we're obedient to those who place us under. Because God placed us where we are by providence. He placed us in the period when we live by providence. And let me say, He gives you the parents you have by providence. He's done it. Let us look at God's command for us to obey each of these societal delegated authorities. Just real quick like. As far as the home goes, the familial ones. There's wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as it is fit in the Lord, He says in Colossians. He also says, children, obey your parents in all things, for this is well-pleasing unto the Lord. Colossians chapter 3, verse 20. Ecclesiastes, church authority, he says, Hebrews chapter 13, verse 7, remember them that have a rule over you, who have spoken unto you the word of God, whose faith follow, considering the end of their conversation. Verse 17, he says, obey them that have a rule over you, and submit yourselves, for they watch for your souls, as they must give account, that they may do it with joy and not with grief, for it is unprofitable for you. To not submit is unprofitable for you. That's to church authorities, governmental authorities, what he tells us. Put them in mind to be subject to principalities and powers, to obey the magistrates, to be ready for every good work, Titus 3:1. 1 Peter 2, verse 13, submit yourselves to every ordinance of man for the Lord's sake, whether it be to the king and supreme or to governors, or to them that are sent by him for the punishment of evildoers and for the praise of them that do well. And contractual, servants, obey in all things your masters according to the flesh, not with eye service, not as men pleasers, but as singleness of heart, fearing God. For whatsoever you do, do it heartily as unto the Lord and not to men. Our boss says we've got to treat them. Servants, be subject to your masters with all fear, not only to the good and gentle. I like that. Not only to the good and gentle, but also to the forward. For this is thankworthy of a man, for conscience toward God endureth grief and suffering. Our responsibility to obey societal authorities is limited, though, to their delegated areas of authority. But it's authorized by God. And that's where rights come into play. Are they within their rights when they come up with their authority? And we're not going to deal with that right now. But we have a goodly heritage. Amen. We have rights. And authorities have rights. So what are the rights of the authorities? Well, first of all, they're based upon the responsibilities of authorities. I said you don't have rights without responsibilities. The authorities have responsibility for protection, for provision, and for promotion. I mean, you know that. God has a right. He protects us. Does He not protect us? Does He not provide for us? And does He not promote the general welfare of us? So do the authorities that you are put under. The government is to protect us from enemies, foreign and domestic. The government is to provide our freedom that we might be able to provide for ourselves. And it's to promote the general welfare. Is that not true? Is that not obvious? In your family, the father is supposed to try to protect the family from outward sources, and the mother is supposed to, the parents are supposed to provide for the children, especially the place of the father, and promote what's in the best interest of the family. Do you see that the authorities have a responsibility? And within those rights, or those responsibilities, there's rights. The boss, the management, is supposed to do this. The pastor is to feed the flock of God. I mean, is that not what he says? Because that's what a shepherd does. He's supposed to watch for your souls. Feed the flock of God. Parents train their children in the way they should go. So we provide chastening to them when they don't do what they're supposed to do. Or so that we can make them to understand why to do it the way they're supposed to do it. Not all chastening is based upon that they did something wrong. Sometimes you chasten to prepare them for something going ahead along down the road. You make them go through hard times by saying, we'll not buy you this. You want it, you go buy it yourself. No, I'll not co-sign that loan. You want it, you go out and work for it and earn it. Why? Because down the road, you do not want to borrow or serve to the lender, and you're trying to teach them responsibility. There's all these rules that we make for ourselves to try to protect ourselves and prevent things, and we chasten because of that. The people needed water in the wilderness. Moses felt the responsibility. Did he not? They went to Moses and they said, we need water in the wilderness. Did Moses say, that ain't my business? I got me my own canteen. No, he went and smote the rock. He went to God, and God said, smite the rock, and he smote the rock. He fulfilled his responsibility. Responsibilities go with authority. And the responsibility to provide the best you can. The Egyptians wanted bricks. And what did they do? They provided the straw and mud. Until they felt like Israel was rebelling. Now let me say, Israel was not rebelling. They were doing their job. Moses came along, and they blamed all of Israel for what Moses did. But they provided, and they said, you make your own straw, and you still got to do what you're supposed to do. They're an evil master, and I just read the verse over there that he said, submit to them whether it be evil or good. I mean, good or gentle. Not only to the good and gentle, but also to the let me find that. But also to the froward. I mean, this is God saying it doesn't matter whether it's a good master or not. And he said, right, just quit my job. If you quit your job out of rebellion because you don't like what the boss says, and without God telling you to do it, you are a rebel against not just them, but you're resisting them and you're resisting God. You better find out whether they're doing wrong before you make your decision that you're going to rebel against them. And even then, you better find out whether it's God's timing. He's the one who said these things. I did say there's areas of authority But the Egyptians did that. They were the evil master. They made things rough for the workers. And they quit providing for the workers like they should have. I ask this question. Did the Israelites have a right to worship God? Or a responsibility to worship God? Which is it? Do you have a right or a responsibility? You know the answer. You have a responsibility. They had a responsibility, and they did it while they were serving the Egyptians. Is that true? You say, I don't know. Well, do you figure out where Moses got taught? He was weaned by his mama. He went and lived with her. And you know what he wanted when he grew up? He said, I'd rather suffer affliction with the people of God than enjoy the pleasure of sin for a season. There's something different about those Israelites. I'd rather be like them than be with you. My association. They had a responsibility and they fulfilled it. Let me say this. Did the Egyptians have a right to expect the Israelites to continue doing their labors? Absolutely. Did they have a responsibility to let the Israelites leave to go somewhere else? Nowhere along the line did it say it was their responsibility. These Israelites were their servants. Now you say, but God wanted them to go. Then God's the one who needs to deal with it. And He did. He sent Moses. Are you seeing how what we try to do is we try to take on God's job upon our own selves? And that's what Moses did, and that's why he fled Egypt in the first place. He killed an Egyptian after he said, I will be a servant. He said, I'm going to act like a sovereign. And what happened? When a servant kills somebody that's over him, people don't like it. And he said, oh no, if the king finds out about this, I am going to be killed. So I'm getting out of here. Now I'm trying to get us to understand something. Our responsibility is obedience. And if there's something God tells us we have to do and they're saying we cannot do it, then our responsibility is to go to the king. And they prayed for years and years and years, and God told Moses, I've seen the affliction of my people, and that's why I'm sending you. Our responsibility to authorities. Did Israel have the right to rebel against the Egyptians, even when the Egyptians were not providing them straw? Did they have a right to do that? Absolutely not. They were evil. They were not good and just. They were forward, and God says for us to obey them anyway. Not only to the good and gentle, but also to the forward. That's the Bible. That's what we believe. So if they chose to rebel, they chose to suffer the punishment as evildoers. And when you and I say, I'm going to do something that goes against an authority, unless God Himself tells you to do it, then you ought to expect to suffer the punishment as an evildoer. Those young Hebrew men, they were willing to suffer the punishment as an evildoer when they said, we'll not bend, we'll not bow. When you make this music, O Nebuchadnezzar, O King, we're not going to do it. And God's going to provide a deliverance for us. Oh, but even if you don't let us out of this, we're still not going to bow. We're never going to bow. See, God's sovereign divine authority intervenes to protect, provide, and promote the cause that He has for His people. And our problem, especially in America, is that we're impatient. Israel waited 400 years or more for a deliverer. But let me just say this. Dear brother Esau, who we talked about in Sunday school, he was an impatient man. He wanted immediate satisfaction. He wanted beans when he felt desperate. Genesis 25. And he sold his birthright for a bowl of beans. And he wanted a blessing when he felt deceived. He felt depraved, and he felt destructive. This is Esau. He felt like his brother had taken advantage of him. And what did he do? He felt like he was deceived. And he tells us in the book of Genesis, chapter 27. And in chapter 27 in the book of Genesis, here's what he tells us in verse number 36. He said, is he not right named Jacob? For he has supplanted me these 2 times. He took away my birthright, and behold, now he has taken away my blessing. No, you sold him your birthright, you outfit. He didn't take it. You sold it to him. But that's a different story. Hast thou not received a blessing for him? He got this. He didn't just feel deceived, but he felt depraved and destructive. Look at verse 41. And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning of my father are at hand. Then will I slay Jacob. And these words of Esau, her eldest son, were told to Rebekah. What are you talking about? He was proposing to kill him. That's Esau, who was impatient. I want what I want, and I want it now. You said he asked his daddy, isn't there still a blessing for me? And he wept. And the Bible tells us he's found no place for repentance, so he sought it with tears. That's what he was doing. He was saying, Daddy, would you repent? Would you change your mind? Would you take it back from him and give it to me? And he did it with tears, wept, the Bible tells us. And yet there was a blessing for him. There was a blessing for Esau. You say, where is that at? Well, we started there in verse number 36. So let's read on verse number 37. Esau said to his father, and Isaac said, his father answered and said to him, verse 39, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth. You're going to get earthly blessings. Physical blessings. It'll be the fatness of the earth. Then he says, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of the heaven from above. You're going to get eternal blessings. Spiritual blessings. This is what he tells him. And by thy sword shalt thou live, and shall serve thy brother. So you will get earthly blessings, you'll get eternal blessings, but there are going to be struggles, and you have to be a servant to get them. And you know what Esau did? He said, I'll kill him first. I'm going to take him. Instead of do what God said so I can get those blessings. I will kill my brother first. Let me say this. God told him, he said, one day you'll have a place, you'll have dominion, and you'll be free from your brother. If you do it my way. And Esau said, I'm not going to do that. And you know what Esau did? Here's what Esau did. He ran off. Instead of servants being subject to your master with all fear, not only to the good and gentle, but also to the forward, for this is thankworthy if a man from good conscience toward God endure grief, suffering wrongfully. You know what he did? He said, I'm going to kill him. I'm going to destroy him. I'm going to get angry. And so if our focus is on our rights and per se what might be right, forgetting that the providence and the sovereign, divine authority of God is what put us where we're at, and is ruling and overruling in the affairs of men. If we forget that, we'll miss the blessing and we'll end up with the blistering. You say, what happens? Even if we make ourselves have a blessing. You say, what happens? Well, Esau, his end result, he made himself his own blessing. We can find this in Exodus or in Genesis 33 when Esau and Jacob meet together. Esau said, I've got all I need. I've got more than enough. Here, I'll take care of you, little brother. So he made his own blessing, but he forsook the blessing of obedience to God. And therefore, in the last book of the Old Testament, God says, I hated Esau and laid his mountains and his heritage to waste for the dragons of the wilderness. Malachi chapter 1, verse 1. God said, you might think you got the blessing, but all you're ended up with is a blister. You've lost your whole heritage. You've lost your family. You've lost everything because you would not obey me. And the authority that was delegated by me of your father, familial authority, home authority. And your daddy said, the dew of heaven, the blessings from above. He said, the fruit of the earth, the things down here, you'll have them. And one day you'll have your own place. And you'll have your own power. You'll have all these things. But right now there's going to be a struggle because you have to serve. He said, that's not happening, Daddy. I'm going to kill the boy. The first book, there was a blessing if you stayed in this place. It's the first book of the Bible, Genesis. The last book of the Old Testament, there's a blessing. Promised destruction of the whole thing. Now the question I would ask you is, what do you do? What is your responsibility to authority? What is your responsibility to authority? It's based upon love. Because I love God. And therefore I will love those and submit myself to those that are over me for conscience sake. Because I'm going to love my neighbor as myself. The action, the attitude is love. The action is obedience. Because obedience is the very best way to show that you believe. To show that you love God. That you believe God cares about you. Obedience. Now again, let me say this. I said this a little while ago. I am not saying that there's never a time in this country for us to demand or request redress from our government. There's never, I'm not saying that there's not. I'm saying if we do not come at this from the first thing as a responsibility to make sure that we meet our responsibilities, then how do we go about telling them we should have our rights? Because our number one right is to fulfill our responsibility. And God told us our responsibility. And therefore, as Christians, as the people of God, my question is, are you loving your neighbor? Are you living like you love your neighbor? Are you obedient to governmental authority? Are you obedient to home authority? Are you obedient to church authority? Are you obedient to your boss? Christians ought to be the best citizens, best church members. They ought to be only church members, but they ought to be the best church members. They ought to be the best children and wives and husbands. They ought to be the best. And they ought to be the best co-workers. They ought to be the best at everything they do. So why? Because of the fact that we're not doing it for them. We're doing it because we love Him. And we love them because we love Him. And we love Him. Y'all know why we love Him. We love Him why? Because He first loved me. Where He first loved us. I asked the question one last time. Are you submissive to authority? If you love Him, keep His commandments. The Bible teaches us that obedience is our responsibility to all authorities that God has placed over us. And God has placed all authorities that we're under over us. For there is no authority, no power that is not or not of God. All authority is ordained of the Lord. Is that not what it said? And I gave you 4 rounds of it. You're running. Somehow or another. What are you doing? Father, I pray you help us.